never stop me. This is what I'm made of. I will never ever let go. This is what I'm made of. No one can control me. 'Cause this is what I'm made of. You can hate but never break me. This is what I'm made of. You can try but never stop me. 'Cause this is what I'm made of. I will never ever let go. 'Cause this is what I'm made of. No one can control me. 'Cause this is what I'm made of. You can hate but never break me.
There are 3 things in life harder than giving a speech: climbing a wall that is leaning towards you, kissing a girl that is leaning away, and having a functioning light and sound system. Winston Churchill.
Speak thy bosom freely. William Shakespeare.
The right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a rightly timed pause. Mark Twain.
A good speech is like a pencil. It has to have a point. Author Anonymous.
A good speech is also like a women's skirt. Long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to make things interesting. Winston Churchill.
If you can speak, you can influence. And if you can influence, you can change lives. Beyonce. We are Chanhassen Speech, and this is what we do.
Every year, I can't wait for my favorite holiday, Halloween! Social expectations be damned, I am coming to your door, and you are going to give me several pieces of candy. Those of you who choose not to, well, let's just say, winter is coming. That's right. This year, for Halloween, I went as Ned Star Hodor. I went as Hodor. So, as Hodor does, I put on several fake animal pelts and had an invalid child strapped to my back, when the friend of a friend came up to me and said, "You know, that's offensive." I looked at him and said, "Dude, it's not even a real child." Apparently, he meant the fur. He pointed me to a New York Times article discussing Halloween costume correctness. Among the list of not approved costumes were zombies, too much gore, Kim Kardashian because nobody wants to see that, and wearing a black belt, unless I've actually earned that honor. Because who wants to dress up as something that they actually aren't for Halloween, right? Is it just me, or have we developed the habit of getting offended at everything? Writer Matt Walsh states that we get offended faster and more efficiently than anyone. Every week there are dozens of new national outrages and boycott campaigns to raise awareness about some offensive thing, or to get someone fired for saying some offensive thing, or to tell us that some previously non-offensive thing is now offensive. And no offense, this attitude seriously hurts us. We as a society are losing our choice to be not offended, because the offense construct is designed for us by everyone else. So today, let's look at how our limitless capacity for offense shelters us from seeing some of the real issues, and maybe we'll discover some solutions along the way. As one of my favorite users of the website Reddit aptly pointed out, some people just wake up offended and fill in the blanks later. But first, what does that phrase actually mean? Jonathan Rauch, editor for The Atlantic magazine, states that that phrase, "I'm offended," has become an unbeatable trump card in which opposing parties use claims of offense as cudgels. And he's totally right. Ask yourself this. Have you ever had a conversation with someone where they've said, "I'm offended," and you continue on to have a rational, productive conversation with them? No! Because that phrase is an instant conversation eliminator. I'm offended, the end. You don't get to say that thing you were saying or believe that thing you were believing. Just look at the Phil Robertson Duck Dynasty debacle from a few years ago. In an interview with GQ, Robertson made a number of homophobic remarks. Understandably, his network, A&E, pulled him from the program. What was less understandable, however, was the public's reaction, which ranged from general disgust to full-on death threats. Let's just take a step back here. He's an old man from the deep South who makes his living killing ducks and making whistles. I'm surprised the guy even knows how to talk. Did we honestly expect him to dance around in a Neil Patrick Harris tank top, cranking Liza Minnelli? I mean, of course the guy is homophobic. And of course, lots of people disagree with him. I disagree with him. But you know what? Some people, actually a lot of people, believe the things he was saying. But our culture tells us that me being offended means he has no right to speak. Now, that's not to say that we just have to roll over and accept the fact that some people are just morons. By all means, stand up for what you believe in and encourage discourse with those with whom you disagree. But that's the problem. There's a huge difference between I disagree and I'm offended. When you disagree, you acknowledge competing claims of what is true, valid, whatever. But when you're offended, you pull the plug on that conversation. Because there's no way that someone could be right and offensive at the same time. And that's what we're seeing today. We're pulling the plug on anything that could possibly be considered offensive. As the New York Times points out, in the University of Colorado school systems, administrators have noted that it's offensive for teachers to use phrases like, "America is the land of opportunity," or to insinuate that the most qualified person should get the job. We're even seeing this trend in our most elite institutions. At Yale University, there's been massive pressure from the student body to implement more accepting standards when it comes to things like cultural appropriation on campus. When one faculty member, Erica Christakis, asked the students to view the controversy through an intellectual lens, you know, like students at Yale should be able to do, they made her life a living hell. Death threats, calls for her resignation, which she did just a few weeks ago. All because she had the nerve to question those who were offended. But the thing is, Christakis was totally in the right. As The Atlantic points out in their article, Coddling the American Mind, research in psychology overwhelmingly points to the fact that avoiding the things that make us anxious or uncomfortable is extremely misguided. In an effort to make the world a safer place for anyone, we've made it less safe for everyone. But I think the problem is bigger than just that. This behavior and how we react to it has created a culture of fear. Fear of being different. Fear of challenging the norm. Look at what this fear has done on an international level. In early 2015, the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo was attacked by terrorists or religious extremists. They targeted Charlie Hebdo and killed 12 journalists because they were one of the only publications in the world to reprint cartoon images of Muhammad, originally published in a Danish newspaper. In the following weeks, thousands of publications around the world paid homage to Charlie Hebdo by printing the message, "Je suis Charlie." I am Charlie. But where were they when that Danish newspaper was under attack in 2005? Where were they when those cartoon images of Muhammad became more than an editorial, but actual news? They were cowering in fear. Fear of being offensive. Charlie Hebdo was the only publication in Europe that wasn't afraid. And as a result, they had a target on their back. Je suis Charlie. Je suis offensé. I am offended. Racist, sexist, and homophobic remarks have no place in human interaction, and just based on simple common courtesy should be avoided. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. Instead of throwing our hands up and saying, "That's offensive," we have two options: ignore or engage. And those are our solutions. First, ignore. Comedian Bill Maher wrote an open letter to the New York Times a few years ago describing this exact situation. He states, "I find Rush Limbaugh obnoxious, but I've been able to comfortably coexist with him for the last 20 years by using this one simple method. I never listen to his program. The only time I ever hear him is when I'm at a stoplight next to a pickup truck." In the end, we have a choice to be offended. So in reality, the only person that can offend you is you, if you make that choice. And second, we can engage. I know that when I go to college, I want my beliefs to be challenged. I want to hear things that make me uncomfortable. Because in the end, if we're never challenged, we can never grow. Behind every racist or homophobic remark from Phil Robertson is an underlying issue. Instead of writing them off, let's do something to address the problem. Something productive. Don't like this speech? You have every right to stop listening right now. But don't tell me that I'm wrong or don't deserve a voice just because you disagree with me. So I decided to stick with Hodor for my costume this year. That friend of a friend, the one who I offended. You'll find out next year that the North remembers. Because I've already got my costume picked out. Sexy Kim Davis! You offended?
We have all seen portrayals of mentally ill people as somehow different, as dangerous, or as frightening. Such stereotypes only reinforce the biases against people with mental illness. Can you imagine this type of portrayal of someone who has a cardiac problem? Or who happens to carry a gene that predisposes them to diabetes? And yet, we have all known someone with a mental illness. Within our families, our circle of friends, or in public life.
In such a spirit on my part and yours, we face our common difficulties. And they concern, thank God, only material things. Values have shrunken to fantastic levels, taxes have risen, our ability to pay has fallen. Government of all kinds is faced by serious curtailment of income. The means of exchange are frozen in the currents of trade. The savings of many years in thousands of families are gone.
Epic space adventures plant seeds of economic growth because doing what's never been done before is intellectually seductive, whether deemed practical or not. And innovation follows, just as day follows night. When you innovate, you lead the world, you keep your jobs, and concerns over tariffs and trade imbalances evaporate. This call for adventure would echo loudly across society and down the educational pipeline.
Today, when we're witnessing some of the most exciting discoveries in the history of science, things similar to the breakthroughs associated with Einstein, Galileo, and Newton, federal funding for science is in jeopardy because of budget constraints. That's why this is a good time for all of us to reflect on the enduring importance to mankind of hope and faith in the future. And nowhere do our hopes take more visible form than in the quest of science.
The world we live in is so full of noise, both literally and figuratively. And too often, we use this noise to make key decisions in our lives. Whoever is the loudest is the best. And this habit makes us overlook the quiet choices, the understated product, the less boisterous person. And as a result, we end up making the easy choice, but seldom the best one.
A recent study in the Journal of Psychological Science found that women especially have a lower threshold for what constitutes as offensive behavior and are therefore at a greater risk for over-apologizing. This is especially negative when being direct is vital, such as asking for a raise or pointing out inequality in the workplace. Over-apologizing has been pinpointed as one of the causes of the gender pay gap. Women are less likely to speak up, and when they do, they decrease the validity of what they're saying.
And so often we see this kind of generational misunderstanding and misinterpretation in the world of politics. It's as the poet William Butler Yeats wrote, "This is no country for old men." But you know what this country has a lot of? Old men. And you know where a lot of those old men are? Congress. I can't be the only one who's just a little bit concerned about the fact that congressmen older than my grandfather are the ones voting on issues such as net neutrality and internet censure, when I doubt that they know how to get to a website without putting the URL into Google first.
My favorite day of the year is the 4th of July. Not because I'm especially patriotic, although, like most, I have been known to tear up the chorus of "I'm proud to be an American." No, I love the 4th of July because it is the only day of the year when it's socially acceptable for me to play with fireworks. And I don't mean play like waving a sparkler around. No, I'm talking about what we used to call bottle rocket freeze tag. The rules are pretty self-explanatory.
Take the tradition, the senior salute, recently exposed at St. Paul's Prep School. According to 2015 CBS Expo Day, this senior salute consists of male seniors doing whatever it takes to have sex with a freshman before they graduate. Even more disturbing of the fact is this tradition was indisputably known and covered up for years by school officials. Let's be clear, this is statutory rape covered up by teachers and administrators, protectors of the students, in the name of tradition.
Here's a fun fact for you. We are all going to die. Yep. Gone. Worm food. Actually, that's the single thing that every human being can be sure of. Yet, as The Atlantic points out, that is one of these hard truths that we unconsciously prevent ourselves from thinking about. Results from their survey show empirically, we just don't want to look. And when we do, we're subject to extreme levels of anxiety. We are programmed to hide. But maybe for our own mortality, that might be a good thing. There isn't a whole lot we can do to prevent dying unless you're into the whole essential oils thing.
We're talking about menstruation. And how a female's uterus lining sheds itself once every single month and just bleeds out of a vagina. Now, how many of you felt awkward or uncomfortable that I said that? You're not alone. While debating over an abortion bill, Representative Lisa Brown of Michigan was banned from speaking in the House for using the medically correct term, vagina. Just let that sink in for a moment. we took away Representative Brown's First Amendment rights because we felt uncomfortable. And yet, we continue to let Donald Trump publicly speak about how he would be dating his daughter if she wasn't his daughter. Weird.
What's this? Orc in the lurk, get tort, snuggly and wiggly? Mrs. McTickle? What is this? What is this? Nobody knew what it meant. I don't think they knew what it meant, but this was his work in progress. For my father to look at me the way he looked at this. So I set my room on fire, and they committed me. I'm an alcoholic. That was a joke. I'm in advertising. Of course I drink. Especially now. Can you believe what happened yesterday? I mean, it feels like a weird dream or whatever. I was just in New York, 2 weeks ago? I didn't know anybody at the World Trade Center.
Talk to yourself. Talk to yourself in the mirror, on public transportation, in the middle of a fountain at the mall. Because there are things you never got to say, and you don't have to swallow them. Join Tinder, make your profile a model, and talk to no one. Keep swiping until you get carpal tunnel. That way you can reject 50 people a minute, and it will feel like killing ants. With abs.
As an experiment, a concert violinist wearing jeans, tennis shoes, and a baseball cap stood in the subway at rush hour and played Bach on a Stradivarius. Partita number 2 in D minor called out to commuters like an ocean to waves, sang to the station about why we should bother to live. 1,000 people streamed by. 7 of them paused. I might not be sighted anymore, but maybe I'm not much blinder than any of you. Maybe you don't think about what it means to be forever in the dark. Maybe you don't think about what it means to see or not to see, because who the hell can stare straight at what's happening? We have to learn to look away, so we can say things will be okay. In other words, we lie, and I don't do that anymore. Since my accident, I've been poked by a blur of doctors, each the best in the business. But the business of what? None of them could save my eyes or my mind. I am a prisoner in the mental dark. What do you see when your world goes dark?
Vera smiled at me as I walked into the fitting room. Could you get any thinner? Every time I see you, keep looking better and better. I hate you. Me? I felt liberated. I felt free because I no longer had to worry about whether clothes would fit, or if I looked good, or if I deserved to be on a hit American TV show. The first dress was too big, as were the second and third.
Hi! Thank you for purchasing the audiobook of How to Ruin Your Life for fun and profit. So, you want to be unhappy. You probably think that you need to be in pain to be an interesting person and artist. And you're right! People who care about you will tell you that you don't need to suffer to be important. But just remember, musicians are always the most important the day after they die. I'm so tired of holding this Mona Lisa smile at a standstill. I've created and uncreated myself so many times using Photoshop, I've forgotten what I look like. Being alive, being human, and being vulnerable is not an act of heroism.
Most guys don't like what I do. Feel they're less of a guy around me. But not Eric. Walks up to me at the bar after a day of flying. He's not afraid to kiss me in the parking lot, like the rock star I am. Takes me home where we fly together.
Girl fact. Your left lung is smaller than your right lung to make room for your heart. Ready for your workout? We'll start with buttock tucks. These are my favorite. Now, deep breath. Remember, make the muscles burn and lift and lower and lift and lower and lift and lower. Squeeze it. Squeeze it. Really squeeze it, Denise. And bounce, bounce, bounce. This is what I like to think about when I do my workout. I think about how I got up at 4:30 in the morning and went for a 5-mile run, and how great that run felt. Just keep bouncing, up, down, and then I think about the novel I'm writing between 9 and 11 in the morning and the chain of appliance stores I'm opening at 12. I just think it is so important that we take charge of our own appliances. You know, last week, I restored electricity to the city of Fresno, and a year ago, I didn't know how to use a can opener. Just keep bouncing, Denise. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. All girls must be everything. All Beyonce and J-Lo have done is add to the laundry list of attributes women must have to qualify as beautiful. Now, all girls are expected to have Caucasian blue eyes, full Spanish lips, a classic button nose, hairless, Asian skin with a California tan, a Jamaican dance hall ass, long Swedish legs, small Japanese feet, the abs of a lesbian, gym on the hips of a 9-year-old boy. Just keep bouncing, Denise. The arms of Michelle Obama and Donald tits. And you know, the only person who is even close to achieving this look is Kim Kardashian. For the report, Girls Incorporated examined the lives of high school girls across the country and made a startling discovery. In the summary of their findings, they described what is known as the Supergirl phenomenon, where girls feel the need to be everything for everyone all the time, creating to some impossible standards. Beyond high school, these supergirls grow up to be Wonder Women. Women who are left wondering, how do I juggle it all? In this program, we explore the lives of different women to see this phenomenon in action, using the drama Workout by Wendy Wasserstein and Evolution by Hilary Illick, and using the prose Bossy Pants by Tina Fey, and I Am an Emotional Creature by Eve Ensler. We prove that we are not superhuman, and that's okay. Supergirl, a program. Girl fact, 1 in 5 U.S. high school girls say they do not know 3 adults they can turn to if they have a problem. For my mother, having young children was the best era of her life. We never went to daycare or even summer camp. She said she always wanted me and my sister right there by her side. I don't feel that way. I feel compelled to have a career and a family. Have times changed, or is she just a better mother than I am? Oh! I felt the burn that time, ladies. I'm going to learn ancient Egyptian so that I can star in the Nefertiti story, which I am producing, directing, editing, writing, and distributing. Let's do 20 more! Denise, put the gun down. Your life is not my fault. Be angry with your buttocks. Let them know your feelings. At 5 o'clock, I'm going to my daughter's dance recital where I will announce the publication of my new workout book for children ages 6 and under and their pets. Afterwards, the entire family will go to the home of a woman friend of mine for women's friendship and tofuti ice cream.
Just two more. Get ready to release. Push it, push it. The kids are crying again. I need to get ready for work, but I feel sick. I make Lucy and Ruby breakfast. I go upstairs and get my makeup on. I grab my briefcase, and I start to feel better. There's something so liberating about immersing myself in the adult life every day and getting to go to work. Every day I have a plan. I have to plan everything out perfectly so that I can do it all. Shoot. Grades were due yesterday. My evaluations last semester weren't all that great, actually. My chair said they were the worst he's ever seen. Can that be true? The worst ever? I want to ask for help, but I'm worried they'll think I don't know what I'm doing. What do I change? Girl fact. Barbie was based on a German doll called Lily that was sold as a sexy novelty for men. Now, if you're not hot, you're expected to work on it until you are. It's like when you renovate a house and you're legally required to leave just one of the original walls standing. If you don't have a good body, you better starve the body down to a neutral shape, bolt on some breast implants, replace your teeth, dye your skin orange, inject your lips, sew in some hair, and call yourself Playmate of the Year. It's Sunday, and I'm dozing when Lucy walks in. Come on, let's get up and go play outside. I open my eyes and see that the yard is covered in snow. It's gorgeous and sunny. So I get up and I go down into the basement and I grab the snow gear and I start pulling it out. Lucy starts getting dressed, but nothing fits. She starts to throw a tantrum. How did this happen? It's a beautiful Sunday morning and I am in my basement being screamed at. So I put in an SOS call to LL Bean. I'm flipping through the catalog when Ruby walks in and says, I'm in my snow gear and everything fits me perfectly. So Lucy screams. And then, the very favorite part of my day, tuck in, feel it all over. The children are outside playing non-violent baseball with zucchinis and radishes, and my husband is making his part of the family meal. Just two more, get ready to release. And it's time for my moment. Just me. And I sit, for the first time in the day, on my favorite chair with my favorite quilt. And I take a deep breath. And I cry. But just a little bit. And then I tuck in my stomach, and I pull up from the chair vertebra by vertebra, and I take a deep inhalation, and exhale. And now, we're ready for 50 more jumping jacks, and 1, and 2, and 3, and let's go, Denise. I'm trying to get my credit card so I can get this order over with when Lucy makes a sudden lunge towards Ruby. Now everyone is hysterical. I hang up on the LL Bean lady and I just can't take it anymore. Snow gear is strewn all over the floor. Kids are screaming. Lucy is out of control. I slap her. I thought when I stopped working full-time, I'd be a better mom. I thought I'd be on top of things like preemptive snow gear management. I thought I'd have more patience, but I hit my child. I could explain to Lucy, but all I want to do is take this poor, confused child up in my arms and tell her that I'm sorry. Which is exactly what I do. Let's go, Denise. This was how I found out that there were an infinite number of things that could be incorrect on a woman's body. How do we survive this? How do we teach our daughters and our gay sons that they are good enough just the way they are? We lead by example. The sense of self I had before I became a mother hasn't survived. But something new is being born. Something I can't plan or predict. And sometimes when people ask me things like, when are we going to see that anthropologist again? I say, I don't know. What's being born is a woman who's okay with not knowing.
Avada Kedavra! Don't worry, I'm not a wizard. But as a kid, I loved the Harry Potter series. And I mean, who didn't? But as a kid, some would say my obsession was a bit, well, ridiculous. Okay. No more Harry Potter references. Let's get serious. So you know how in the fourth movie, Harry needs to breathe underwater for an hour? So he and his friends decided that the best way to do this would be for Harry to emulate a fish. So he takes a potion and grows gills, allowing him to breathe underwater. And this is where science meets magic. Harry's emulation of the fish is what is known in the real world as biomimicry.
Me and my family, we love to play ping pong. We play it for hours. But sometimes when my family's not around to play ping pong, I sit around at home and wonder what to do with my life. That is until I learned about virtual reality. Now, the New York Times published an article about this new virtual reality system called the Oculus Rift. And it stated that the Oculus Rift has 40 infrared cameras on the front of the device, which allows for motion to be tracked outside of the user's field, thus offering interaction between the two worlds. Now, this means that instead of playing chess with a computer, I can now play ping pong.
In the kitchen, you can surprisingly find full-size appliances. However, other things like pots and pans need to be hanging up to save space. In the bathroom, you can find a small sink, shower, and a toilet, which is most of the time compostable. As for the bedroom, it's typically at the top of the tiny house, as a loft, and almost nothing else can fit here except for a king-size mattress. So your bedroom is just a bed. Down in the living area, you can find entertainment, like a TV, computer, and some couches. And this is normally where most of your work gets done. So overall, when it comes to building a tiny home, there is no limit. Creativity and simplicity is all you really need.
As a kid, I was always ahead of the curve. In preschool, I was the first student to write my name. Forwards and backwards, of course. In kindergarten, I was the first boy in the grade who had ever kissed a girl. I didn't tell anyone it was my sister. And in third grade, I even invented my own product, the Apple Watch, where I fastened a strap to my iPod and wore it as a watch all day. That's right, I was 10 years ahead of the folks at Apple. As a 7-year-old, I had recognized that Americans have an obsession with time. Just remember, we are all given the same amount of time, but what we do with it is up to you. Sadly, time flies, but the good news is that you're the pilot.
Siri definitely has a personality. If I were to ask her the question, Siri, what's 0 divided by 0? She would answer with a long response stating, imagine that you have 0 cookies and you split them evenly among 0 friends. How many cookies does each friend get? See, it doesn't make any sense. And Cookie Monster is sad that there are no cookies, and you are sad that you have no friends. Siri uses something called a natural language user interface in order to perform certain actions after being told what to do. But yet, the only thing that we see is the words on the screen that she speaks back to us. We hear the voice and we hear the response, but we don't really think about it. It's simply that, a voice.
Thank you.
In 2008, the New York Mets decided to hold an open-ended online poll to determine what song they would play during the 8th inning of their home games. Which is a lot of trust to put in a group of people, especially on the internet. However, votes started rolling in with classics like Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer and Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline. However, the winner with over 5 million votes was no beloved classic. It was Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, making the Mets Stadium of 55,000 people the latest victims of the internet prank known as Rickrolling. It took 5 million people to get the entire Mets Stadium to boo in one glorious harmony. So crowds have power, as we know and the internet has proven, with a phenomenon known as crowdsourcing, defined by Merriam-Webster as the practice of obtaining needed services, information, or content by soliciting contributions from a large group of people. Crowdsourcing is becoming the new way to get things done. So today, we'll first explore the recent rise in crowdsourcing. Then we'll look to its daily uses before finally reaching out to see its bigger implications. So 5 million people may have come together to torture Mets fans with Rick Astley's song. But using the crowd to get things done isn't a new idea. Communities of people coming together to accomplish a task that's too difficult for one person to do alone got us things like the Great Pyramids, built using massive amounts of Egyptian slaves. The Sydney Opera House, which asked average citizens for help in designing one of the most architecturally advanced structures in the world. And the atomic bomb, created when you throw a bunch of brilliant scientists into a room and tell them to create the most powerful weapon ever produced. So, important things can happen when groups of people come together. But current trends in society and technology have cut down on these face-to-face interactions. So now, instead of me sitting around with my friends showing them awkward family pictures, they just like them on Facebook. A 2015 Nielsen research study found that we use our electronic devices almost 9 hours a day, which is more than the average sleeping time. And 2015 Pew Research Center data found that social media usage has increased 800% since 2005. So crowdsourcing is feeding off of this exponential growth. It's like teamwork without borders. Instead of being confined within walls, crowdsourcing harnesses the power of the internet to take advantage of the ever-growing online population. But more than that, it allows people to become part of something bigger than themselves, filling the gap that was left when much of our communication went online. In the article, The Psychology of Crowdsourcing, published in February of 2012, we found that when groups of people have mutual aims and interests, their social bonds are strengthened. Because of the primal need to belong to a group, your productivity increases through crowdsourcing. It allows people to feel community bonds within a society primarily driven on the internet. So, just as Rick Astley promised, that he's never going to give you up, that he'll never let you down, the crowd will certainly never desert you. Its uses are growing rapidly. We've all heard of Wikipedia. You know, the website that's strictly forbidden by all teachers. It uses the crowd to add and edit information. And according to Wikipedia, its scientific articles came close to the level of accuracy in Encyclopedia Britannica and had a similar rate of serious errors. So, while Wikipedia is a website containing endless information about the world, Kickstarter is a website used to fund projects that could change it. It uses a form of crowdsourcing called crowdfunding to fund projects submitted by the public. One of these world-changing Kickstarter campaigns has changed the lives of millions. Cards Against Humanity, known as the party game for horrible people. It gives you a question like, what helps Obama unwind? With answers such as former President George W. Bush, or home video of Oprah sobbing into a lean cuisine. This now $12 million company asked for $4,000 on Kickstarter and received 15,000. Max Temkin, the creator of the game, shared his advice for those thinking about using Kickstarter by saying, "People want you to succeed. They'll believe in your belief. Even if that dream is to have an all-pug version of Shakespeare's Hamlet." That was a real campaign. It raised over $5,000. Next, apps are further propelling the success of crowdsourcing. Postmates is an app designed to get goods to its customers in under an hour by using the crowd as its postman. It works by first viewing purchase options in your city. Then you select your item and mark any special considerations. Then finally, you send in your order. Then Postmates will select willing citizens to pick up and deliver your items. These temporary delivery men are offered a small paycheck to bring you your favorite items on their way home from work. CEO Bastian Lehman calls it America's best part-time job. Next, Waze is helping people on roads all across the country by using the crowd to monitor weather, traffic, and even where police cars are. Anyone can mark notable conditions from their morning drive, therefore preventing others from dangerous road conditions or from flying past that police car that you swear you never even saw. So clearly, crowdsourcing is making big changes worldwide, but it's not all rickrolling and Cards Against Humanity. On March 4th, 2014, Malaysia Airline Flight 370 went missing. Several search missions were launched with no success in finding the plane. So eventually, the company DigiGlobe took charge of the mission and turned to crowdsourcing. Nick Allen and Harriet Alexander stated in a March 14, 2014 article for the Daily Telegraph that 2 million people participated in a virtual search party for the downed Malaysia Airline Flight 370. Over 4,000 miles of ocean were covered by people analyzing satellite photographs. Crowdsourcing allows the public to take on some of the workload, so that work that would have been impossible to achieve is now possible. However, unfortunately, this method has been utilized in harmful ways. John Carlin, Assistant Attorney General for National Security, stated on December 12th of 2015, "We're facing a new threat when it comes to terrorism. ISIL has decided to crowdsource terrorism. They took advantage of social media in the United States by using false media messages to recruit American citizens for their cause. So suddenly, you'd have a kid here in the United States talking to a terrorist overseas, further leading them down the path to radicalization. ISIL is building their crowd in the hopes that these new followers will commit acts of terrorism. This horrifying use of crowdsourcing has exposed its darker side. So, sadly, the uses of crowdsourcing have now moved beyond designing websites and funding crude games. However, inversely, the crowd is being utilized to fight these terrorists. BBC reported on November 18th of 2014 that the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects activity has just launched a website inviting the public to try their hand at intelligence forecasting by submitting predictions for future terrorist attacks. The IARPA works on ideas that could be used by the CIA. After receiving criticism for failing to predict key world events, the intelligence community is in dire need for new ways to keep our country safe. And crowdsourcing is a very strong contender. So while crowdsourcing could be the future of intelligence, it's becoming NASA's reality. NASA reported on August 14th of 2014 that a wealth of images taken of Earth at night on the International Space Station have the potential to unlock a wealth of information about energy consumption. But there's too much data from the 1.3 million images to use it in a valuable way. So scientists are turning to crowdsourcing. The crowd is being asked to catalog these images into 3 categories: cities, stars, and other objects. Alejandro Sanchez, PhD student at the University of Central Missouri, stated that anyone can help. In fact, without the help of citizens, it's almost impossible to use these images scientifically. So from rickrolling to Cards Against Humanity and the CIA to NASA, crowdsourcing is making big changes worldwide. So today, we first explored the recent rise in crowdsourcing. Then we looked to its daily uses before finally reaching out to see its bigger implications. Crowdsourcing gives us each a piece of responsibility. So now, the power of the world could quite literally rest in your hands.